Part 1. The Flight of Disrespect. It was a warm afternoon at JFK Airport. Families, business people, and tourists bustled about, each with a destination in mind. Among them was Angela Johnson, a poised and successful black woman in her early 30s. Angela wasn't just any passenger. She was an attorney who had recently wrapped up a major civil rights case in New York. This flight to Los Angeles was meant to be a quick break before her next case. Angela boarded first class with her ticket in hand, excited to settle in for the long flight. As she placed her carry-on in the overhead compartment, a flight attendant named Susan Miller, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and a forced smile, approached. "Excuse me, ma'am," Susan said, her voice laced with condescension. "Are you sure you're in the right section? First class is up front." Angela looked at her, confused but calm. "Yes, I'm in seat 2A, first class." She handed over her ticket. Susan glanced at the ticket, then back at Angela with narrowed eyes. Well, just make sure you don't block the aisle too long. Other passengers need space." The tone was unnecessary. Angela felt the sting, but brushed it off. As the flight continued boarding, Susan's behavior became more obvious. She smiled warmly at white passengers, offering drinks and pillows, but when Angela asked for a blanket, Susan responded curtly, "We'll see if we have extras." A man in business attire across from Angela raised an eyebrow, noticing the treatment. Angela pretended not to care, but inside she was simmering. The tension escalated when meal service began. Susan distributed meals politely down the aisle, but when she reached Angela, she dropped the tray roughly on her table. "Here, chicken or pasta?" Angela replied firmly. "I'll take the chicken, please." Susan smirked. "Figures." The whisper wasn't subtle. It carried, and several nearby passengers exchanged uneasy glances. Angela's heart pounded. She wanted to respond, but years of experience in the courtroom had taught her to pick her battles carefully. Halfway through the flight, Angela pressed the call button. Her seat screen had frozen, and she couldn't watch a movie. Susan walked over, rolling her eyes. "What now?" Angela kept her composure. "My screen isn't working." "Can someone reset it?" Susan leaned closer, voice low but sharp. "Maybe you should have bought a ticket and coach. People up here don't usually complain." That was it. Angela's restraint cracked. She stood, calm but commanding. "Excuse me? I paid for this seat like everyone else here. I expect the same respect as any passenger." The surrounding passengers were now fully aware. A young couple in row 3 whispered, "That's not okay." Susan folded her arms, glaring. "Sit down, ma'am, or I'll have to report you to the captain." The cabin fell silent. Angela's lips pressed into a thin line. She sat back down but pulled out her phone, typing swiftly. She knew her rights, and she knew this wasn't the end of it. By the time the flight landed in Los Angeles, the air was thick with tension. Susan had avoided Angela's row for the rest of the trip. As everyone deboarded, Angela overheard Susan muttering to another attendant, "Some people just don't belong in first class." Angela stopped in her tracks. She turned around, stared Susan directly in the eyes, and said, "This isn't over." The screen fades to black. To be continued. Part 2. Karma takes flight. The next morning, Angela's phone buzzed with notifications. Overnight, her tweet detailing the incident had gone viral. Hashtags like #FlyingWhileBlack and #JusticeForAngela were trending. Thousands of people shared their own stories of discrimination in the air. Angela hadn't expected this level of attention, but she wasn't about to back down. She contacted her firm's PR team, and within hours, news outlets were calling for interviews. Meanwhile, at the airline headquarters, the situation exploded. Susan's name was trending. Videos recorded by fellow passengers had surfaced, showing her rude remarks and dismissive behavior. The airline's CEO, Richard Palmer, called an emergency meeting. "This is a PR nightmare," he barked. "We need damage control. Get in touch with Ms. Johnson immediately." Later that afternoon, Angela sat in a sleek black SUV, headed to a press conference. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd gone from being humiliated on a plane to being escorted like a celebrity. At the podium, Angela's voice was steady but powerful. "What happened to me on that flight wasn't just about one rude employee. It's about a system that allows bias and discrimination to persist unchecked. This is not just my fight. It's for everyone who has ever felt less than because of the color of their skin. The crowd erupted in applause. Susan, on the other hand, was placed on immediate suspension. News crews hounded her house. In one clip, she tried to defend herself, saying, "I didn't mean anything racist." But the footage spoke louder than her excuses. The airline, desperate to save face, offered Angela a private meeting. The CEO himself apologized. "Ms. Johnson, on behalf of our company, I sincerely regret the incident. We're launching a mandatory diversity and sensitivity training program for all employees." Angela listened, then leaned forward. "That's a start, but I want accountability. Apologies are meaningless without change." Her demand went public, and soon other airlines announced reforms of their own. Angela had unintentionally sparked an industry-wide movement. Weeks later, as Angela boarded another flight, this time greeted with warm respect, she noticed something different. The crew seemed more attentive, more conscious. She settled into her seat, and a young black woman across the aisle whispered, "Thank you for standing up. You made this easier for people like me." Angela smiled softly. That single sentence was worth it all. As the plane took off into the clouds, she leaned back, reflecting. Discrimination had tried to silence her, but her voice had become a megaphone for change. The screen fades with the words, "When you stand against injustice, you don't just change your story, you change the world."